Okay, all right, and let's go ahead and do three with me. This is the Appare-Ranman three with me, so you should have watched it already for this segment, and if you haven't, then go watch it and then come back and listen to us. So, what did you think of it?
I really, really, really liked Appare-Ranman. It shouldn't be a surprise, at least for me anyway, because when I saw the preview for it, and I actually wound up watching a little bit of the first episode before we made our recommend, but I was super excited for just the style. Even the
Mm-hmm.
opening that's introducing you to all the characters, sort of like that first 5 minutes, which now as I know, the first 5 minutes of the first episode is actually a jump ahead um, to what the events that start out in episode five. But
Yeah, I think so.
I it has a very like classical structure, and there are this particular type of story, the sort of like nationwide or world road race is a classic trope as it is. And as
Mm-hmm.
you get through the first three episodes and you're starting to meet the various characters in the series, there's a couple of themes that really jumped out at me that made the show more endearing. I think the biggest one is this idea of breaking past whatever the limits in society happen to be. All of the characters that we are introduced to thus far, from Appare to Hototo and all the supporting characters, they all share the same real challenge of being limited in some way, either by society or the past, or by their family, or by expectations of other people. And it seems as if the story is setting up to use the race as well as the character of Appare, who's someone who clearly does not believe in any of these things, to break out of those barriers and sort of show people that whatever they think their limitations are in life, they can overcome them if they dream hard enough and work hard enough. And I think that's again like a very simple theme, and one that resonates across time. And that's not even getting to the fact that the show itself looks really good. The
Yes,
world is very well
definitely.
developed, even though it seems like a temporal mishmash. Because I still am not totally sure, like in their version of reality, like when is this supposed to be taking place? But it kind of doesn't matter because it's just cool. It's cool to look at. So, what did you think of
Yeah.
it?
I really love the art style and the art direction of the show, like all around. I love the bright colors. I love the character designs. And as far as like the story goes, I'm dialed in. I'm interested, and I also like how different all of the characters are, and how the interactions between all of the characters is played up, especially between Apare and the other racers, and how we're basically getting backstory on everyone. It's not just like Apare is trying to fix the car before the race starts. Like it's slowly building up everyone else in before we get into the race, and then it fuels their motivations or their future motivations. So when something happens in the future, I'm gonna be like, oh, that makes absolute sense, as opposed to basically being like, why the fuck did that bitch do that? Like, what's going on? I
Right, I
understand.
totally agree. I also think that there's like little in jokes and gags and verbal gags that are there, but they're not overpowering, or they don't really detract. The comedy itself doesn't really detract from the setting, and it's already
Hmm.
kind of like a silly series with over the top characters and everything else. But one of the things like I noticed was like when we were introduced to Kosame, and then you're very quickly introduced to his sister, and there's this sort of like running joke that I see multiple characters participated, where something happens and then they sort of like something happens that is just very onerous and bothersome, and there's a like verbally they're just sort of like, oh, it is what it is, and they kind of just go along
Yeah.
with it, but like different characters do the same joke. Because Kosame did it, or the little sister did it in the first episode when he like leaves with the swords, and then Apare does it, I think, in like episode three. There's also like just a lot of fun little callbacks. I love seeing series where American culture and American history is reflected back through like the funhouse mirror of another culture and another artist like take on what's going on. So like in the first episode, I noticed that there was a sign in the background that said something like, uh, all the fun from Fort Lauderdale or something like that. I'm like, why would there be a
Mm-hmm.
reference to Fort Lauderdale, Florida in this series? Like, so it's
I
just
missed
weird
that
stuff.
shit. Yeah. I missed that. As far as the comedy goes, I'm already enjoying the dynamic between Kosame and Hototo. especially with like the fish
Oh
and
yeah, that was funny.
the running, yeah, like the running gag that like he keeps treating Hototo like a child, and so Hototo keeps taking it out on him in little ways and being petty. And I'm like, now
He's like, you
that,
whack, you weak, get out of here.
yeah, it's like that's entertaining, and I see what you're talking about, where you're like, it's not the main focus, like it's thrown in there, and I'm like, okay, I can definitely see how this is gonna develop, or not develop, but like I enjoy this, but it also does not take away from the overall thing that's going on right now.
Yeah, like there's a level of absurdity that like Kosame's character is probably going to want to be low key my favorite because he's closest to the audience insert because he knows the least about sort of like what's going on and is constantly the one that's being having things explained to him, whether it's like about
Mm-hmm.
character motivation or like just generally like how the world works. And I think like his struggle they touched on I think in episode 2 of not being able to draw his sword. Despite clearly he's actually pretty good. Like he's not he isn't a joke character, and that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make about the comedy is that like everything in this series, all the characters for the most part are ridiculous in some way or over the top in some way, but none of them are treated as just figures of fun within the context of the world. They're all seriously rendered, no matter what's going on, and everyone kind of treats everyone else like they are in fact a human being that
Yeah.
is trying to accomplish something. So that's a hard juggling act to do in a series where like in the third episode where he literally launches the engine of his car to the finish line, which is insane. It makes absolutely no sense.
Oh, I
But
loved it.
yeah, but
I
it was
loved it.
good. Yeah, he's like hugging the tree. Kosame's like hugging the tree afterwards, like just little gags. So I appreciate that it's understated, but it's not boring.
Oh yeah, I definitely do not. I have not been bored with this show at all. Which I feel like there have been a lot of shows in the similar veins where like it's the same production quality, but it just doesn't come together. And I was kind of worried about that, but I'm not worried about that at all. Like I watched the first 3 episodes, and I didn't watch past the first 3 because I didn't want to like spoil anything when we talked about it. But now I'm about to go like what? There's like episode 7, 8 out right now. I'm about to go catch up because I can't wait to see what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I would not be opposed to maybe even adding this to the weekly watch if the quality kind of holds up through the next few episodes because obviously I think it's a one core, so yeah,
Yeah.
it's 13 episodes. So it's an easy watch, and I absolutely want to know who that dreadhead dude is.
Yes.
Cuz he was banging to some hip hop. I'm like, how we get hip hop in like the either the late 1800s or like the 1900s? Like
Yeah.
it's so hard to
I'm getting
tell.
an early 1900s feel
Right,
from
like
this.
it's like what is there's some whatever the term is for like a historical anachronism, but it's like from the future, cast into the past. Like, how did this happen? But it looks cool.
I agree. Okay, and so then now that we've already